Hello and welcome to Ball Down South. Tonight is our Pac-12 preview. Tonight we got John, Brad, and myself. Let's go ahead and get it started with John. John, tell me what you think about Stanford.
Stanford, last year they was ranked 122nd on offense and 114th in total defense. I think it's going to be about the line play for Stanford. I think they're going to have to be a lot better than they was last year. Um, you know, they've only won 11 games in the last 3 years. That's not good, especially where Shaw was at the beginning of his tenure at Stanford. So at the end of the day, I feel like Stanford needs to improve their offensive line. In their experience, really experience on offensive line, they've just been ineffective at times. So in the defense, the defensive line's not going to be real good either. So on both sides, I think line play is going to have to improve if they want to get back to the Stanford of old. But if I was going to pick a win-loss total, I'd probably go 6 wins for Stanford. I just don't see them competing in the Pac-12 this year.
Okay, Brad, you got something for me?
So with Stanford, David Shaw kind of has his stereotypical quarterback. He's got a guy by the name of Tanner McKee. He's 6'6", 230, drop back pocket passer. And that's kind of what David Shaw's known for. It's what Stanford's known for. So he does have that going for him. Their defense last year was pretty terrible. 236, they gave up 236 rushing yards a game. So they brought in a couple of transfers, one from Oklahoma, and they have their top two tacklers coming back. So, they're have a chance to improve. They do have two really tough non-conference games at Notre Dame, and BYU comes to their place towards the end of the season. BYU started preseason ranked 25th in the AP poll. Looking at their schedule, they play USC, Oregon State, Arizona State, Washington State at home. And away, they have 5 this year. They have Washington, Oregon, UCLA, Utah, and California. Looking at their schedule, they only won 3 games last year. I just don't see that they make too much of an improvement. I'm going to go that they win 4 games. They're 4-8.
4-8.
Yep.
Okay. John, did you give us a record?
Yeah, I gave you 6-6.
6-6, 4-8.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me about the Huskies, John. What about Washington?
I really like this team. This is a wild card team, in my opinion. Jalen DeBoer, he comes from Fresno State. He was 9-3 last year at Fresno State. He beat UCLA at UCLA. He only had a 7-point loss to Oregon. So, and he's an offensive minded guy. And I think that he's going to open up this offense for Washington a little bit. And I feel like that this could be a wild card team in terms of, and they got some playmakers on offense. After last year's debacle, it couldn't be any worse than what Jimmy Lake did. So they're bringing in Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake was their old head coach, should I say. But DeBoer's coming in with an offensive-minded team. I believe the defense is going to be improved. They was actually really good last year. So if I was going off, picking wins for this Washington team, I think they got a chance to go 8-4. It just depends on how the offense meshes together, especially at wide receiver, because they got some new guys and some older veterans too.
Yeah, absolutely. Brad?
Yeah, with this team, Kalen DeBoer is a first-year coach. That usually doesn't bode well, but I do believe that this team has the pieces to at least be fairly successful in his first year. Like John said, he does come from Fresno State. He actually brought his offensive coordinator with him from Fresno State. And they had the 14th ranked total offense in the country last year at Fresno State. So they are offensive minded. They have a very talented linebacker core coming back, and their defense was fairly solid last year. There is a little hype on them to be in that mid-tier in the Pac-12 this year. I do believe that that they are capable of that. Their big game, their big game to start the season out, the third game of the season, is they actually get Michigan State at home.
Really?
Yeah, Michigan State comes to their house. The third game of the season. That's going to be a really, really big game for them. And depending on what kind of showing they have in that game, I believe that this team has a shot at doing something in that mid-tier range in the Pac-12. They do not have to play USC this year. They play Oregon, and they do not play Utah as well. So, I mean, that's two games out of the Pac-12 that could be dangerous for them that they're missing. So, I believe this team has a shot of making that 8-4 range that John just said.
Right. Okay. So you're picking 8-4 too?
I am with this team, yes.
Okay. 8-4 as well. Anytime you got Sparty coming to town, it's a good thing though. So let's go to a team that's going out to Athens to start the season. John, can you tell me about Oregon?
Yeah, I like Oregon. Dan Lanning come from Georgia, defensive coordinator. And what better situation to jump into than what Dan Lanning jumped into with this talent that he's got? The linebacker core is going to be good. The wide receiver core. My biggest thing is with the whole Bo Nix thing. He transferred from Auburn. Bo Nix had some mixed results at Auburn, and with the offensive line that Oregon's got, he's going to get protection. That's not the key thing here. The key thing here is, can Bo Nix stay consistent? Can Bo Nix throw down the field? Can he make big plays? And you saw at times at Auburn he didn't do that. But the way he walked into a situation like he did, Lanning, I feel like there's an opportunity here to go to a big bowl. New Year's Six. And they bring back Noah Sewell, Justin Flo, Mace Luna, Funa, I'm sorry. That linebacker core, that's probably the best linebacker core probably in the country, if you really want to get down to it, technical about it. But at the end of the day, I think Oregon wins 10 games. But I feel like the game against Georgia is going to be crucial because, I'm not going to say it's going to derail their Pac-12 chances, but it don't help it none either, especially in terms of national championship. If you lose a game like that early in the year, like that first game, it kind of knocks you out of getting into that big picture. So, but I believe Oregon's going to have a big year this year. I think they'll go 10-3.
10-3. It definitely does knock you out of the running early, so it's hard to keep locker room morale, stuff like that up. If out of the gate you got big expectations, they just get flat tired right out of the starting gate. So, right, tell me what you think. You've mentioned a lot about Oregon in the SEC preview, but what about right now? You got anything for them?
Yeah, I mean, with Oregon, the very first game is the game that everybody's talking about and everybody wants to see. Can't wait to see Georgia, versus Oregon in Atlanta. That's going to be a huge telltale game for them. I mean, Oregon has dreams of being in the college football playoff this year. So, that's a game that is for them, it's a must win really to stay in that race for the college football playoff. They did bring in Dan Lanning from Georgia. It's kind of a homecoming game for him to go back to Atlanta and get to play Georgia, very first game of his head coaching career. So that's kind of cool for him. I'm sure that Oregon and the Ducks are going to be fired up to play that game. There is another game, non-conference, that they play that they get to play at home, and they play BYU. BYU today was ranked 25th in the country, and BYU gets to come to their house, and that should be a very, very big game as well. They simply cannot lose both of those games early in the season and have any dreams at all to play in the college football playoff. other than that, looking at their schedule and they play Utah at home. They do not play USC this year. So looking at their schedule, I can easily see them going 10-2 in the regular season. Will that be good enough for the college football playoff? I kind of think they might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. 2 losses right there in the end of the year. I could see that. But John, take me from one Chip Kelly team to another Chip Kelly team. Tell me about UCLA.
I like this UCLA team. They're a wild card. That's another wild card of mine. This is probably Chip Kelly's best team that he's had at UCLA. He brings back Dorian Thompson, Robinson. He brings back Zach Charbonnet, the running back. The offense is loaded with talent. The biggest question is their defense. They gave up a lot of plays last year. And can the defense get better? That's the big question. But if you're looking at it on paper, I feel like this team can win the Pac-12. It's an 8-9 win team. Chip Kelly, he knows his way around the Pac-12. He was at Oregon for quite a while. So, and this is his big opportunity to make headlines in the college football world this year. So, I'm gonna stick with my guns, and I'm gonna say 8 or 9 wins. They'll go to a big bowl this year. This is probably the best team he's had in quite a while.
All right. Well, I mean, Chip Kelly doing good never hurt college football, and he did it.
And they also got Jake Bobo, all ACC third team. So, their offense is going to be really good.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, Brad, tell me something about him.
I mean, with Chip Kelly, he spent all those years in Oregon and had such tremendous success there. He started at UCLA here. He's been there 4 years. This will be his 5th. And up until last year, he had struggled there. His overall record right now is 18-25. And last year they finally come together and had a good season, and he went 8-4. So, Chip Kelly has kind of struggled there. I agree with John on the offensive side of the ball. He seems to kind of have things going for him now. He's got his quarterback, Dorian Thompson Robinson, back, like John was talking about. One of the big things John mentioned right at the end, I was going to throw in, was Jake Bobo, a Duke grad transfer. He was all ACC performer last year, and he's coming in to join their offense that is pretty stellar already. The defensive side of the ball is where it's going to be. They struggled holding people to sometimes less than 30, 35 points a game last year. And, that catches up with you in the big games against the good teams. Their non-conference schedule is weak. I'm just going to be honest with you. Their non-conference schedule is completely weak. The Pac-12 plays a little different than the rest of the country. Yeah. They play 9 conference games and only 3 out of conference games. And they're half the teams play 5 home games and half of them play 4 away, and the other they switch and swap. Yeah. So it's kind of an uneven scheduling, I think, through it all. UCLA doesn't catch a break this time on the Pac-12 conference schedule. They got to play Utah and USC at home, and they play Oregon away, Arizona State away, and Washington at home that we just talked about a few minutes ago. So, I think they have 4 or 5 games in there in the Pac-12 that could be a toss-up or a loss. I can see Chip Kelly taking this team probably to an 8-4 record. And I do believe that UCLA would be happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think they would too, especially with the improvements he's made over the duration of his tenure there. So take me from California 1 to California 2. What about USC and Lincoln Riley? John?
I like this move. I think it's going to be a really good fit for Lincoln Riley. He brought Caleb Williams to transfer from Oklahoma, brought in Mario Williams, brought in Brandon Rice, also brought in Jordan Addison from Pittsburgh. And I'm just gonna be honest with you. They had the number one passing attack last year. And you add Lincoln Riley into the fold with what he did at Oklahoma, and this is going to be a fun USC team to watch. They miss Oregon. They also miss Washington. They play on the road at Utah and UCLA. But the biggest thing with USC is their line play. Their line play was not real good last year. But overall, I believe this team can win 10 games. There's a lot of hype around USC. Everybody's wanting the Reggie Bush days and everything to come back into order. But at the end of the day, it's his first year, like Brad said on one of the others. And sometimes them first years are kind of a struggle. But with the talent that he's got, I just don't see it happening. Especially at wide receiver, running back, quarterback. So I'm gonna go with my gut here, and I'm gonna put them at 10 wins, 10 maybe 10-2, maybe the Rose Bowl, possibly.
You think they'll be knocking on the door at the end?
I think they can beat Oregon. But Oregon will give them a challenge though.
Yeah.
Oregon's got a good defense, so that will be a challenge for USC. But I think they can go to the Rose Bowl. And Lincoln Riley's first year, that's a hell of a job.
Okay. Brad?
Well, what I'm going to talk about with USC is this. I mean, in this new age of NIL and transfers and, being eligible right away and basically free agency in college football, USC is the cover child for that right now. I mean, they went out with the high money and got their coach and brought in players and tons of different players from all over the country from good teams and brought them out to Los Angeles to play at USC. I think that this is, let's see what happens when you go out, revamp a whole coaching staff and roster and see what happens. That's what I think. Their defense last year wasn't great. They're going to have a great offense, and their schedule is not that tough. You look at their schedule, they play Utah away, UCLA away, and they have Notre Dame at home at the end of the year.
Yeah.
They're tough. Their schedule is not that tough. Their defense is what's going to be the telltale sign for their season. They gave up 410 yards a game last year, over 32 points a game on defense. And I think that's going to be what holds them back. It is Lincoln Riley's first year, but like I said, we're in the new age of college football, and you go out and you buy all these people and bring them over, and they can transfer and buy the coaches and get everybody there, and everybody expects them to be good and have a chance to make the college football playoff. They're ranked 14th on the AP poll today. I believe that they will have a great season for a first-year head coach, and I'm going to pick them to be 9-3.
Okay. Hey, you can pay players now. Reggie Bush should get back his Heisman Trophy. Let's just say that.
Exactly.
All right. Let's talk about one that we've been talking about for a little bit today. Let's talk about Arizona State. John, what you got?
Oh, violations. They lost a lot. Their NCAA violation deal. The whole, losing half of their, class last year to the NFL and graduation. Lost Jaden Daniels to LSU. They had 4 starters in the secondary gone now. I'm just going to go on a hot take. I believe this will be Herman Edwards' last season at Arizona State. I feel like that, he's just not getting it done. and they're not going to be really good this year. They're not going to have a real good team. There's an opportunity, I don't know, even if there is an opportunity, because you look at their schedule, they play at Oklahoma State, they host Utah, and then they play at USC. At you know, if you lose those 3 games, I mean, you're not doing well sitting pretty trying to get to a bowl game. So I think this is going to be a 4-win team. I believe they'll go 4-8.
4-8.
I just don't think Herman Edwards is the man for this job.
It's a tough job. It really is. Brad?
I'm going to be on the other side of this one, John. Herman Edwards has won 8 games twice and 7 games once in his 4 or 5 years there. He was 8-5 last year, went 6-3 in the Pac-12. And then I'm going to give you this little tidbit. They led the Pac-12 in total D and scoring defense last year. That's a big time get for Arizona State to do that in the Big 12. They got a running back from the Wyoming that's coming in. His name is Valladay. He's a transfer. And then one of their big people that they brought in is Emory Jones from Florida. He brought in Emory Jones from Florida for their QB. With that running back and Emory Jones dropping back in his legs and his mobility, I think he had over 700 rushing yards last year for Florida. I expect them to have a well-rounded rushing attack. Now, passing game, we'll see how that pans out. But they had about 390 yards and almost 28 points a game in offense last year. Now, do I believe that Herman Edwards is going to get this team to the Rose Bowl? No, of course not. I'm going to slow that roll just a little bit. But I do believe that he's going to be in a mid-tier range with the Pac-12. I can see them going 7-5.
Okay. I mean, I agree with it. I don't know if I can jump on John's bandwagon just yet, but another terrible season or so, I might see it. But I'm kind of with you, Brad.
Yeah, I'm more or less basing it off losing a lot to the NFL and losing their quarterback. I mean, it's hard to make changes at quarterback when you got one of the top quarterbacks in the Pac-12 go somewhere else, and it's hard for a transfer to come in there and do the same thing. So maybe Herm Edwards proves me wrong. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't see it.
And by yeah, I mean I understand. I can't jump on the fire Herm Edwards train. Not yet. Another year or two, if it's still the way it is, maybe. But people like him. He's a good voice. He's a great guy. He's a likable fella. People don't want that out. He's good to bring into your living room when you're a 17-year-old's parent.
Playoffs. Talking about the playoffs.
Hey,
I remember that speech.
Yeah, we might be talking about the playoffs, but I don't think he is this year. He's talking about Utah. Tell me about Utah, John.
I like this team. They're the favorites to win the Pac-12 South. Cam Rising is a heck of a quarterback. They bring back Tavion Thomas, running back. The biggest key for Utah starting out is the game against Florida. They go to the Swamp, and it's not going to be the Florida team of old, but for them to get on the map, a win in the Swamp right off the bat would absolutely do wonders for this program. It probably send them to the highest they've ever been. And plus they got a November game at Oregon, and that'll probably be for a lot of, maybe Rose Bowl, Pac-12 talk. So I'm looking at this team, and I think Utah has got a chance to break up the college football playoff this year.
Oh,
and I think they might be one of those teams that slides right in there.
So are we talking New Year's Six from you?
I'm talking possibly playoffs.
Possibly playoffs? If they're not looking in,
but I'm going to stick with my guns and say a New Year's Six. But they're the type of team with the talent that they got coming back on the O-line, and especially at quarterback and running back. And their defense is not too shabby either. Their defense is probably one of the better ones in the Pac-12. So I say they missed the playoffs by maybe 1 or 2 games, but they're going to go to a big bowl.
Yeah, a couple of games. Hey, out in Utah, I remember the days when Utah 3 wins was good in Utah.
I'll do a big hot take here. This might be the best team they've had since Urban Meyer in 2004.
Okay, that is a big hot take. Brad, can you top that without going overboard?
You're saying this is the best team since Urban Meyer in 2004. I mean, let's remember that last year they won the Pac-12 and went to their very first Rose Bowl last year. So, they have the pedigree right now in the Pac-12 to move forward and do even better. Kyle Whittingham has done an absolute excellent job out there. There is no bones about it for that. I mean, he's got this team rolling. They are in the top 10 in both polls preseason. I think 7-1 and 8 in the other, I believe, or somewhere in that range. They're both polls. They're top 10. They are the preseason favorite by looking at polls and media. And John's right. They have Cameron Rising, which is a great name for a quarterback. I still say that. I still say that's a great name. And they play defense. And the Pac-12 isn't exactly known for playing defense. They held opponents to just under 20 points a game last year. And they'll come at you and they play hard and they play defense. The two best defensive teams, most likely in the Pac-12, is going to be Utah and Oregon. Would be my guess. They have to play USC at home, and they get Oregon on the road. The Florida game to start out with is going to be huge for them. I mean, this is national television, nationally televised. It's going to be big for them, and I firmly believe I'm going to go on record and say that the Utah Utes go to the Swamp and win. I think they're going to win the first game of the season and go to the Swamp and beat them.
The thing is, I don't think that's surprising for anybody here. It's not really a hot take. I think we can all kind of agree on that.
But in the realm of college football, that's a pretty big, to go a team take a Utah who Urban Meyer left and went to Florida.
To Florida and win. Yeah, that is right.
Win the title. I mean, the team that John was talking about, Urban Meyer left Utah to go to Florida, and now Utah might go back and beat them in the Swamp. I think that's a pretty big statement in the overall rung of college football. Yeah, I'm going to say that this team I think they're going to win the Pac-12. I think they're going to go 11-1 and push for the college football playoff.
New Year's 6.
I'm going to go on record, man, to say that if they can pull off 11-1 and win the Pac-12, they'll have to be 12-1 to do that because they'll have to win the conference championship. If they can do that and win the conference championship, I think they'll go to the college football playoff.
Oh, wow. All right. So you're filling in your college football playoff bracket already.
I think they have a great opportunity to do so.
Well, John said NC State was going, so you're not the only one with the name filled out in that bracket. So, all right, take me to the Wildcats out west, John.
I'll just be honest with you. 1-11 last year. They got new parts coming in, young talent. They signed a 5-star, a wide receiver, I believe, in McMillan. This team will be a lot better. I just don't see them winning maybe 4 games. They'll be more competitive. The biggest thing with Arizona has been their depth, offense and defense. They just ain't had the depth and the beef up front to really compete in the Pac-12. So if they can, I think it's second year in a rebuild, 2-year rebuild. And I think, 4 wins is a better feeling out in Tucson than 1-11.
Oh,
And just in COVID year, if you can remember, they lost to Arizona State 70-7. So, and then they lost last year to Northern Arizona. So things could be a lot worse. I mean, it could be a lot worse.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think they'll improve on their record. I think they'll be 4-8, maybe 5-6. They will be improved though.
Yeah.
They'll be an improved football team, that's for sure.
That's a win for them. That is a drastic improvement for them.
It really is. Yeah.
Brad, what you got for him?
Yeah, I mean, they've been a terrible football team the last couple of years. Like John said, they had a first-year coach last year. Jed Fish is his name. He went 1-11. It was a massive overhaul job that he had with the roster that was left when he signed on. He's taken some baby steps. He did bring in Washington's quarterback as a transfer, which in conference, flipping Washington's quarterback, Jaden DeLaura is his name. He is projected to be the QB1 in fall camp. They have not said he's going to win the job, but I expect him to win the job. They brought in a couple of wide receiver transfers. So they are attempting to upgrade that roster because it was basically depleted last year. One thing I will say, if they're going to have that improvement that John was talking about, in that 4-win range, they're going to have to force some turnovers on defense. I'm going to give you a little stat. So the last 4 games of the season last year, their defense had forced zero turnovers.
All year?
The last 4 games of the season, their defense forced 0 turnovers, okay? And then I'll go even one step further than that. The last 7 games, they only forced 1 interception on defense.
Yeah.
The last 7 games of the season.
Yeah.
So, that's atrocious, to be quite honest with you. So, if they're going to improve and get to that 4-win mark, which looking at their schedule, I think they have a shot at it. I mean, they play North Dakota State, San Diego State. They got a home game against Colorado. I think there is a chance that they could get to the 4-win platform. And that's where I'm going to put them. I believe that you're going to see a little bit of improvement from the Jed Fish-led team, and the Wildcats are going to get to 4-8 this year.
Okay. 4-8. 4-8's what it is. Improvement to improvement. Tell me about Colorado, John.
This is a team that was just simply not real good last year. They was second worst offense in the country last year. 257 yards a game, Pac-12, I'm saying. They lost their DB Christian Gonzalez. They lost Brendan Rice. They lost Broussard, their running back, to Michigan State. They did get JT Stroud, former quarterback at Tennessee, but he's coming off a knee injury. And you just don't really know, coming off a knee injury, how things are going to shape up. So I don't see a lot of hope for Colorado at this point. I mean, their defense wasn't real good last year. Their offense wasn't real good. They couldn't sustain drives at times. So, and then they play Oregon, at USC, at Washington, Utah, TCU. Then they go to at Air Force. There's a chance Colorado could maybe win 4 games, 5. And I believe that's what I'm going to stick it at, 5-6 at the most. There's just some questions at quarterback that, when they lost their best running back, and a quarterback coming off a knee injury, you just don't know how a quarterback's going to react. And that's how I feel about this Colorado Buffalo team. In which many don't remember, Colorado used to be a really good football team with, Rashawn Salaam, Cordell Stewart, Michael Westbrook. They used to have some really good teams, and to see it go down like it has, it's, you know,
Colorado was a power back in the day.
back in the 90s. Yes, sir.
Mid 90s, Colorado was a power. So, Brad, you got anything for him? Good news?
I can't say that I got much good news for Colorado, to be honest with you. Their coach, Carl Dorrell, I mean, he basically has completely overhauled his whole staff. You know, he had a rough year last year, and he has hired 6 new assistant coaches. He's completely revamped his whole staff. One of those is offensive coordinator Mike Sanford. People may recognize him from he's been an OC at Boise State. He's been an OC at Stanford. He's been an OC at Notre Dame. He was the head coach of Western Kentucky University for 2 years. Recently, in the last about 3 or 4 years ago, he was the head coach for Western Kentucky University. You know, they've been a high-powered offense at least, you know, and that's kind of what Mike Sanford's known for, is a high-powered offense. I think, you know, he's hoping that Mike Sanford can come in and create something there that they just simply haven't had. Like John said, they brought in the Tennessee transfer. They also have a former 4-star recruit that started there last year some, and he had little injury problems too. His name is Brendan Lewis, you know, and he's going to be one that Mike Sanford's going to be working with and try to get going. They do have a rough schedule. They play TCU, at Air Force, and at Minnesota is their non-conference schedule. They play 2 of their 3 games away in their non-conference schedule. You know, they play Oregon and Utah and UCLA at home. They play USC away. You know, I believe they play Washington away. You know, I just don't see that this team is going to be able to get past that 4-win mark. I'm even going to put them at 3-9.
Okay. 3-9. No good news for Colorado. It is a shame to see such a good team doing so poorly. It really is. They were a wonderful team to watch when they were well, too. All right, let's go on out to palm trees, John. Tell me about California.
California, this is probably my surprise bowl team coming into this year. You know, the last 3 years they've had a pretty decent defense in the Pac-12. It's just been inconsistent on offense a little bit, but they brought in transfer Jack Plummer from Purdue. I think he's going to make a difference at quarterback, and if they get some help at wide receiver, I think this team can win maybe 6 or 7 games. And you know, the last 2 years they went 6-10, but a lot of that had to do with being inconsistent on offense. Now the defense has played their part, but you know, now they got a quarterback. Can he make strides in, you know, throughout the season and maybe get some help at receiver and make some moves there? And if they do that, I think this team can win 7 games. I wouldn't be shocked if they won 8. I think this California team is hanging in the balance of being a wild card team that could maybe shape up and shock some folks.
Okay. Okay. Hey, that's good news for California. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, Justin Wilcox is there. He's 26-28 in his tenure, so he's right around 500. He did bring in Jack Plummer from Purdue, you know, to be his quarterback this year. They do have a great defense. Their back 7 is led by hard-hitting safety Daniel Scott. They do have a great back 7 on their defense, and they're one of the better defensive teams in the Pac-12. I'll give you a little tidbit on them. They lost 5 games last year by 1 TD or less. You know, so they were in a whole bunch of games last year and was right there in it and just couldn't figure out how to take the lead and win the game. You know, I think that with a new quarterback, another year under Justin Wilcox's belt, I believe there's a chance that they could turn it around just a little bit and at least make a bowl game. I'm going to give them 7-5.
Okay. I mean, 7-5 is not terrible for California. What about the team that has the flag that goes everywhere, John? Tell me about Washington State.
But they like to sling it around, that's for sure. I like this team. They got Cameron Ward coming in. They get the offensive coordinator, Eric Morris. He was the former coach of Cameron Ward. I think this is going to be a fun offense to play in. But can they stop anybody? That was the big key last year. They really, in the secondary, they lose quite a bit. And they're going to need some help in the secondary. And if this team can figure it out on defense, I think this team will win maybe 6 or 7 games. I feel like the offense that was there when Leach was there is still pretty much evident. It's just a matter of being consistent, especially on offense, especially on defense, especially defense, because last year they just wasn't real good. And this can be a really good team, or this could be a really bad team. You just don't know which Cougar team is going to show up. But at the end of the day, you can't say nothing about their fans. Their fans show up everywhere. So they're always passionate about their football team. So I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm gonna say they win 6 games. They'll go bowling.
Yep. Go bowling. That flag is going to show up in the postseason, ain't it?
Yes, sir.
What about it, Brad?
Well, you're talking about the bowl game for Washington State. So 6 out of 7 years, Washington State has made a bowl game.
Yeah.
The only year they missed was the COVID year, 2020. That's the only year they've missed in the last 7. Now, California can't say that in the Pac-12. Stanford can't say that in the Pac-12. Heck, even UCLA and USC can't say that in the Pac-12. So, Washington State has a little bit of their fans. You're talking about their fans. I mean, they can beat their chest a little bit. They've done better out there over the last, 6, 7, 8 years than most teams have, out in the West. So, they did bring in Cameron Ward. He's an FCS guy that many talk about being a pro prospect.
Yeah.
He threw for almost 4,700 yards and 47 TDs last year. And he came there. He's an in-state guy. He was at an FCS program in Washington. He's an in-state guy, and everybody in the state knows him. And so he transferred over to Washington State to lead their offense. And their offense has been pretty stellar. They've had Mike Leach, 3 years ago, and they are still racking up the points out there. The defense is kind of like the old Mike Leach defense. It's the bend but don't break defense.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they've, the defense that they've had. They'll give up some yardage, but they, red zone defense, they try to keep you out of the end zone.
Yeah.
That's basically where they're at. I'm going to go with the schedule nugget here. They play at Wisconsin, the second game of the season. That's Wisconsin's ranked 18th in the AP poll today. That's going to be a tough place for them to go and to win a game. Second game of the year. And then they get Utah and Oregon at home. And they play at USC.
Yeah.
So that's, some tough games on their slate. There's probably going to be a couple of slip-ups beside that. I'm going to say 6 wins for them as well. I think they'll make a bowl. And that's kind of been their MO and their goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they will. I think they'll be 6-6 and make a bowl game.
Yeah.
There was a time where Washington State had a guy by the name of Ryan Leaf, and they was really good. And he ain't walking through that door today.
All right.
Ryan Leaf.
John, let's get off Washington State. You tell me about Oregon State.
Oh, Oregon State. This could be another wild card team. You know, last year they was ranked fourth in the Pac-12 in total yards, 31 points per game. They lose B.J. Baylor in the middle, a rusher, Deshaun Fenwick. So their defense is going to need a little help at the rushing edges. They bring back some talented receivers. You know, Chance Nolan will be back, the quarterback. So this could be a team that could surpass their win total last year. They finished the season 7-6 last year. I think they got a chance to go to 8 wins. You know, they'll have 7. They might need to win that Oregon State game to maybe get 8. The big rivalry. So this is a team to watch in the Pac-12. They don't have a lot of star players. They just got guys that are willing to get out there and get their hands dirty. And that's what I like about this Oregon State football team. And that comes off the head coach. And I love this team.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with it. 8 wins.
Brad.
I'll give you a little interesting tidbit about this team. So they demolished half of their stadium, and they are renovating that half, but they're going to play this entire season literally with half of the stadium. Their home games, they're going to have 26,000 on one side. The whole west side of their stadium is gone, and they're doing a renovation. So it's going to be interesting. Their home atmosphere is going to be a very interesting season for them. I would have to say. They did make a bowl game last year. They did. They went 7-6. You know, I think this team can possibly do that. Their defense is a struggle. They give up a lot of points on D. That's kind of where some of their losses come in. Is they have some talent on offense, that their D kind of struggles. They play Boise State to open the season. That should be an interesting game for them. They play USC and Oregon at home. Oregon, of course, the rival, the last game of the season. And they get Utah and Washington on the road. You know, I look at their schedule, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go 6-6 with them. Is what I'm going to go.
500 season.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that does it for us here on Ball Down South. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. We'll see you soon.